Find your sermon guide, if you would, or go to page 611 in the Bible in the book rack, or find the Bible on your iPhone. If you need a sermon guide, find this one here. How many of you need one? I see a hand over here. Oh, you already got one? He took, oh. I see. I told you I was going to bring you one.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did. All right, we're in a series in Ezekiel, all right? I have the privilege today of going through 4 chapters, 29, 30, 31, and 32. Now, in order for me to do that, I had to do a lot of speed reading that you don't have to do. I had to do a lot of research that you don't have to do, so I'm going to distill it. I'm going to summarize it. I'm going to bring it down in bites, all right? So we're in a series on how do you poison Christmas, all right? How do you mess up Christmas? How many of you have experienced conflict at Christmas time? How many of you would say that Christmas sometimes is uncomfortable, awkward? All right, so stay with me. I'm going to take you to the book of Ezekiel. But what I want you to do first is see the big picture, all right? So there's 7 ways to poison your Christmas. A few weeks ago, we said, number 1, make America your God. Now, if I was in China, I would say make China your God. If I was in Canada, I would say make Canada God. Take a nation and just make a nation godlike. That'll mess up all kinds of problems. Number 2, the second way is literally chase the finer things, the finer things, the finer things. Next slide. Maybe. There it is. Chase the finer things. Now, it's okay to have nice things. Don't hear us saying you can't have a nice car, you can't have nice clothes. That's not the point. The point is you should be chasing Jesus. He's the finest person on earth. And you're going to be really happy at Christmas because, friends, every gift that you get at Christmas may not meet your expectations. And as soon as you get something, you may just simply be discouraged because in 2 or 3 weeks it's going to break. It's not going to work right. Number 3, we already said a few weeks ago, exalt worldly knowledge. You want to poison Christmas? Get worldly knowledge above the supernatural. You remember 3 Sundays ago, I stood over here and said, over here is the supernatural. This is God over here. And over here, God's knowledge. Over here is man's knowledge. And just focus on the knowledge of man. And just get rid of God's knowledge. You're going to really have a messed up Christmas. Number 4, we suggested chase beauty. Again, here's what's going on. God designs beauty. We saw this in Ezekiel. He designs beauty. And if you enjoy beauty the way God designed it, everything is fine. But what we usually do is we take something beautiful and we redesign it. Is there any redesigning in America today of beautiful things? Sure, redesigning all the time. And we just simply walk away from the beauty of God and all the beauty that God has created. So, because if you're over here redesigning God's beauty, I'm telling you, it becomes violent. It becomes messed up. I'll give you some illustrations in just a moment. Number 5, we're going to talk today about abusive power. I'm going to show you in Ezekiel 29, 30, 31, and 32, abusive power. Anybody ever been bullied? Okay. In the 6th grade, I walked out of social studies. I believe it was Mr. Ray's class. I don't know what I did, but somebody decided this guy was like twice my size. I knew the kid, but he was a big kid. I was a little kid. I walked out, and he had cowboy boots on, and he hauled off and kicked me right in the rear. It stung for weeks. He never said a word to me, never said why he kicked me, but I'm telling you, it hurt. Now, when you think of a bully, I'm sure you're thinking of somebody really big. No, I'm going to show you how to recognize a bully from Ezekiel 29 and how to respond to abusive power, okay? And you're going to understand that there's a supernatural way to do it. Number 6, this coming Saturday is Christmas Eve. We're going to give you the 6th way to poison Christmas in the Christmas Eve service. And number 7, we'll close out our series, number 7 on Christmas Day, okay? That's the plan for this series on several chapters in Ezekiel. Now, we're going to light a few candles to remind you of over here. Friends, you want to be over here. This is where God will bless you in all kinds of ways. You don't want to live over there. So God brings truth, and it's supernatural. Advent candles are designed to remind you of supernatural. We have a problem. We forget. Prophecy is the first candle. That's supernatural. It's a promise that God gives, and he says, be looking forward to this prophecy, this promise. And the promise that Micah gave in Micah chapter 5, literally some 500 or 600 years prior, is that there would be a ruler born in Bethlehem from literally Ancient of Ancients. So you have literally Jesus being announced prophetically hundreds of years before he's born in Bethlehem, specifically Bethlehem. By the way, what does Bethlehem mean? House of bread. Listen, if you're not full, if you're not happy, if you're not satisfied, you're not feasting on Jesus. Over here, the supernatural. And we're suggesting to you that this prophecy in Bethlehem was first delivered to shepherds. Now, I don't know what you think of shepherds. Don't demean them, please. I know they probably smell, but I probably smell. You probably smell. But shepherds are not, they don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of, they don't write a lot of books. They don't have political power. They're kind of like ordinary people. So the announcement supernaturally comes to shepherds first. It's a privilege, friends, to receive supernatural knowledge. And it was given on the 4th candle for Advent. It was given by who? Angels. Advent is designed to remind you of the Christmas story. So let me just encourage you, the center candle we will light this next weekend. Now, what I want you to do is I'm going to give you from 2,600 years ago. You're going to have to stay with me. I did all the research, so you're going to have to pay close attention. If I see someone closing their eyes, I'm going to walk up to you and I'm going to call you out. So 4 gold nuggets is what I'm going to give you. 4 gold nuggets on recognizing and responding to bullies from Ezekiel. Hit the next slide. I think I got it on the next slide. Ezekiel chapter, literally starting in 29. Gold nugget number 1, there's 2 ways to identify a bully. Now, you got to understand, Ezekiel 29 is geopolitical. It's nation bullies, okay? Nations. Think Egypt, Canada, think Iraq, think Assyria, think it's nation to nation, all right? You're going to see that play out. But what you're going to see here is that God identifies some monster in the text. And I'm saying to you, you don't want to be the monster. I'm saying to you, you don't want to be the bully who abuses the power that they have, and God identifies you as a monster. Ladies and gentlemen, America is being destroyed by monsters, by bullies. You're going to see one in the text. So you're going to see, number 1, 2 ways to identify a bully. Number 1, taunting words right out of the text. Give me another synonym for taunting. Mock, ridicule. You ever have anybody ridicule you? Mock, tease? There are some of you in the crowd here today that you like to tease. I won't identify you. But you like to tease. Fun teasing is okay. A little bit of teasing is fun. But friends, a lot of us take teasing at a really ugly level. I'm saying to you, don't. Number two, the second way to identify a monster or identify a bully is childlike lies. I mean, bullies just make up all kinds of fabrication. You're going to see that in the text. You say, Roger, okay, show me. All right, Ezekiel 29. Here's gold nugget number one, how to recognize a bully. Watch what comes out of their mouth, taunting words, and watch the lies that they fabricate in their own conscience. Chapter 29, verse 1. In the 10th year, in the 10th month, on the 12th of the month, friends, that's spring, January or February, 588 BC. Those of you that like the history data. The word of the Lord came to me, Ezekiel. He's a prophet. He's also a priest. So the word of the Lord came to me. He's over here. He's not getting natural knowledge. He's getting supernatural. The word of the Lord came to me saying, Son of man, Ezekiel, set your face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Now, friends, Pharaoh is a monster. You're going to see that in the text. He's a bully at the geopolitical national level. And prophesy against Pharaoh. Not only against Pharaoh, but against all of Egypt. Now, why is God against all of Egypt? Why? Because all of Egypt doesn't worship the God of Israel. Because Egypt put a lot of Israelis in bondage for hundreds of years. There's lots of reasons I could give you. Verse 3. Ezekiel, speak and say, this is what the Lord God says. Now, God is talking now. So God's going to describe what he thinks about a bully. Behold, I am against you. You don't want God against you. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great monster that lies in the midst of his canals. What's the big river in Egypt? Nile. The Nile is the longest river on earth, the longest source of transportation, and canals go off from the Nile River for the most productive agriculture almost on the entire planet. So it's a big deal, this river. And it says there, the great monster that lies in the midst of the canals. Do you know what they often find in the river, in the canals in Egypt? Say it. Crocodiles. What's going on here is God takes something human, anthropomorphic, and turns it into something that everybody needs to understand. There is monsters in Egypt, specifically Pharaoh. Now, watch the next sentence. Those of you that like to pull out of the text some gold, watch this. How does God identify the Pharaoh as a monster? Lies in the midst of his canals that has said, Pharaoh, you said this. My Nile is mine. That river, the Nile, that longest river in the world, is mine. Really? And I myself have made it. Now, you're probably looking at that and you're kind of wondering. So what I'm saying to you is the little phrase, my Nile is mine, that's a taunting phrase. Listen, Paul, it's not yours. It's mine. That's arrogance. What you have with any person that's a monster, I'm superior, I'm rich, you're dirt. Bullies exalt themselves, and they look down on you, and they find all kinds of reasons in their mind to slam you. And notice the next phrase, I, Pharaoh, made the Nile. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a lie. That's a childlike lie for the Pharaoh to say he created it. So what you have with a bully is someone who says things that are mocking, and they're fabricated on lies. You do not want to be a liar. You do not want to mock people. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to sound political, but I want you to hear my heart. I don't care if you're the President of the United States. You should not mock anyone. You should not move to name calling. You should not call any group of people an ugly name. Friends, God says, I'm calling you out. Don't mock. Don't ridicule people. That's one of the ugliest sins that God describes in the Bible. He classifies it as a bully. How many of you understand schoolyard bullies? Can I give you an example of one? This schoolyard bully happens to be a FedEx driver. This FedEx driver just recently, in the last week or two, drove to deliver a package to a family, to a house. In that package was Barbie dolls for 7-year-old Athena in the house. Don't know all the story yet, but literally that FedEx driver somehow or another got his hands on 7-year-old Athena, kidnapped her, and then killed her. Friends, in a second, the child is gone. In a second, this man's life is totally messed up. Why? Power abused. You have in your ability any second to say things and do things and fabricate lies up here, and you will do the monster action. Okay, Roger, that's a FedEx driver. Well, let me give you another crazy story. Here, you know that I wrestled in high school and college. Some of you know that. And so when I read a wrestling story, it catches my attention. Iowa produces some of the best wrestlers in the world, the state of Iowa. Anybody from Iowa? I won't identify his name, but he's like a sophomore, freshman, sophomore, junior, 2-time state champion high school kid. Why? This 2-time state champion high school got his other wrestling buddies to create a hazing line and forced other younger wrestlers through the hazing line and did some of the most despicable things you can imagine. That 2-time wrestler is now facing criminal charges. In a second, life has changed. I want you to see, when you see a bully, here's the first thing to do. I would like to be able to call on some of you, but I don't want you to think that I'm using you as a positive or a negative illustration, but I want you to pay close attention to me because I had a conversation with someone that I care about on my street, the street I live on, just in the last week. And a bully was at work. I was not talking to the bully, but a bully was at work messing with this friend's family. All right, so watch how to respond to a bully. Gold nugget number 2 from Ezekiel chapter 30. As soon as a bully appears, as soon as you think you're dealing with someone who lies and taunts and mocks, the very first thing you should do is ask God for supernatural answers. A lot of us don't go to God. I'm saying go to God. So here's Ezekiel chapter 30. Let's start in verse 10. This is what the Lord God says. Remember, this is God talking. Here's what God will do. I will also make the hordes of Egypt cease by the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and he and his people with him, the most ruthless of the nations, will be brought in to destroy the land of Egypt. They will draw their swords against Egypt and will fill the land with the slain. Moreover, I will make the canals dry, and will sell the land into the hands of evil men. And I will make the land desolate and all that is in it by the hand of strangers. God says, I'm going to get even. By the hand of evil strangers, I will destroy that monster. I, the Lord, have spoken. Drop to verse 22. Therefore, this is what the Lord God says, behold, I'm against Pharaoh, king of Egypt. I will break his arms, both the strong and the weak one, and I will make the sword fall from his hand. 23. I will scatter the Egyptians from the nations and disperse them among the lands. I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon. Babylon is a bully. It's crazy. And put my sword in the evil Babylon's hand. God's sword goes into an evil bully and says, I will break the arms of Pharaoh through this evil Babylon bully. This other Pharaoh, this other bully. So that Pharaoh will groan before him with the groans of a wounded man. 25. So I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon, but the arms of Pharaoh will fail. Then, verse 25, then they will know that I am the Lord when I put my sword into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he reaches out against the land of Egypt. 26, when I scatter the Egyptians among the nations, disperse them among the lands, then they will know that I am the Lord. So how, when you identify a bully, what's the first thing to do? Listen, people. Do you think God gets better revenge than you or not? I think God gets better revenge. Don't hear me saying you don't do anything. Hear me say, as soon as you identify a bully, you start asking God to do something supernatural. Start asking. I think a lot of us, when we face a bully, we quickly go right over here, and we want to take matters into our own hands. I'm saying, trust that God's going to do something. Let me give you gold nugget number 3. So here's the gold. When you identify a bully, you're asking God to supernaturally to do something. I'm suggesting to you, chapter 31, I'm suggesting to you, here's what you do. Watch and expect bullies to rise up. Watch. They're all around us. I'm suggesting, in addition to watching and expecting bullies to rise up, be strong. Hit that next slide. Each bully will fall by the hand of God. How God's going to destroy a bully, a monster, I don't know. You don't know. But I'm telling you, supernaturally, every bully will be destroyed. Look with me at verse 1 of chapter 31. In the 11th year, in the 3rd month, on the 1st of the month, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, now, in Ezekiel, there's a number of prophecies, 5 to be exact, against Egypt. So what you have here is another prophecy in chapter 31. Son of man, say to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his hordes, his evil army, whom are you like? You think you're really great. Who are you like in your greatness? And then God brings out an example. Assyria was a cedar in Lebanon. Assyria, another bully in the region, the Middle East, with beautiful branches and forest shade, very high. Its top, Assyria was so strong, so mighty, the top of the cedar tree reached all the way to the clouds. What you have here, write this down, Egypt is boasting in its greatness. That's the context. But then you also have Assyria is also a bully nation, and Assyria says stronger than Egypt. Watch the logic. Egypt wasn't as great as Assyria. Watch verse 10. Therefore, this is what the Lord God says, because it is tall in stature, Assyria, and because it's evil, and because it's a bully, and has put its tops among the clouds, and its heart is haughty in its loftiness. I mean, Assyria thought it was really a giant bully. I, God, will hand it over to a ruler of the nations, and he will thoroughly deal with it in accordance with its wickedness. I have driven it out. Verse 12. Foreign tyrants of the nations have cut it down and left it on the mountains. And in the valleys its branches have fallen, its branches have been broken, the ravines of the land. And all the peoples of the earth have gone down from its shade and left it. Assyria destroyed. All the birds of the sky will nest on its fallen trunk, and all the animals of the field will rest on its fallen branches. Here's the logic. Babylon destroyed Assyria. Those of you that know the history. So the conclusion is, if Babylon can conquer Assyria, Babylon can conquer Egypt. That's the logic. God is using bully nations to destroy bully nations. And ladies and gentlemen, God uses bad people sometimes to do his work. Here's the fourth suggestion to you. Gold nugget number 4. To destroy a big bully, God can use another bully. Some of us take matters into our own hands, and can I caution you? Be careful. When you think that you've got to create your own justice, you can be setting yourself up for big trouble. Be careful. Ask God to supernaturally help. Give God time to work on it. Do the godly things, but don't come over here and be another bully. You don't want to be another bully. Here's why. All bullies, write this down, go to the pit. All bullies go to the pit. That is a reference to all bullies get destroyed. Now, I wish that God would hurry up. I wish that God was not slow in his justice. I wish that God would destroy every bully right now. But do you know what would happen if he destroyed every bully right now? Where would we all be? We all know how to lie. We all know how to be abusive with power. We know how to mock people. We all know how. Friends, listen, I don't know why God is slow in justice, but you don't want to end up becoming a bully. You don't. So here's an example in Ezekiel chapter 32. Look at verse 29. Here's another example that God destroyed another evil nation. They're also in Edom, its kings and all its princes. By the way, where's Edom? Anybody? Edom? Go to the Dead Sea in your mind and just go south and to the right of the Dead Sea. That's the land of Edom. Despite all their might, are laid low with those killed by the sword. They will lie with the uncircumcised and with those who go down to the pit. There's another group, also the chiefs of the north, all of them, all of the Sidonians, Sidon, that's north of Israel, Lebanon area today, who in spite of the terror resulting from their might, in shame, they went down with the slain. So they lay down uncircumcised with those killed by the sword and bore their disgrace with those who go down to the pit. God will get justice, people. God will get justice. Look at 31. These Pharaoh will see, and he will find consolation regarding all of his evil armies killed by the sword. Pharaoh and all of his armies, declares the Lord God. Though I inflicted the terror of him on the land of the living, yet he will be laid to rest among the uncircumcised, along with those killed by the sword. Pharaoh and all of his hordes, declares the Lord God. What's the takeaway for me? The takeaway for me is this: Roger, don't be a bully. Can I just quickly nudge you? Friends, I'm all for a little bit of teasing. I'm all for a little bit of joking. I'm all for a little bit of fun. But a lot of us don't manage the words that come out of our mouth well enough, and we inflict a lot of pain on each other. Be careful what comes out of your mouth. You do not want to mock people. You do not want to ridicule people. You don't want to say, the Nile belongs to me. Listen, everything you have is a gift from God. You do not want to take matters into your own hands. You want to believe that God of the Old Testament is the same God of the New Testament, and justice and revenge belongs to God. That being said, you can go over here and say, God, we need some supernatural help. Some of you have said to me, Roger, why are you still a pastor? Why are you a pastor? I'm a pastor because I love it. How do you survive as a pastor? Here's how I survive. Right over here. Vengeance belongs to who? Not you, not me. Friends, if you want God to deal with a bully, don't be a bully. Watch what comes out of your mouth. Don't get these lies going on in your head, and ask God to supernaturally destroy the monster. Now, yes, God says there's a government, and yes, God says there's police, and yes, God says there is a godly way to respond to a bully in addition to asking God for help, and you should do that. Here in our church, if somebody is mocking somebody or belittling somebody, I will go to them immediately and call you out. Not only me, but you'll do the same, and I invite you. If you feel like I mock you or tease you, you call me out. That's okay. Speak the truth in love. What you don't want to get caught into is being God and thinking that you're doing something right when really you've become an evil bully. I share with you North Carolina, just in the last week or two, this man got sentenced to life in prison for murdering his girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter. How did he murder his girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter? With chloroform. You know what chloroform does? Chloroform is that stuff that you put in a rag and you put it on the mouth, and it basically makes you pass out. Okay? Why did he do that? The allegation is so he could get high on drugs. See how he abused power? He has lies in his head and decided he could do whatever he wants. Let me give you another example. Satan is alive and well. Just this last week in Illinois, at the state capitol in Illinois. What's the city? Say it again. Springfield. There's a nativity scene. And next to the nativity scene is a menorah. And a satanic temple display now sits next to the nativity scene. You remember what I said behind evil, behind an evil person is Satan. You don't want to be playing with evil. Let me give you another example of abusing power. Not at the geopolitical level, but just individually. He's 1 year old, totally innocent, in a car with his family driving down the freeway. Mom and Dad's driving. He's in the car, strapped in the chair. And 2 other cars come alongside. Gang number 1, gang number 2, rival gangs, and have a shootout on the freeway. And the 1-year-old gets killed. Abuse of power. Evil. How will God destroy those monsters? I don't know. I don't know. I hope, I believe in justice. How many of you know of the term American Girl? Yeah, it's the doll company. Makes lots of popular childhood dolls. Well, American Girl is this business in America that makes millions and millions and billions of dollars. They just published a guidebook encouraging preschoolers, elementary kids, how to become transgender by using puberty blockers. Think with me. Now, Over here, I call that a lie. They have fabricated their own lie. They're going to redesign what's beautiful, and they're going to come over here and they're going to use it to their own design pleasures. Ladies and gentlemen, bullies, abusive power is all around us. I'm going to ask you to bow your heads, please. God, teach us not to be bullies. Teach us not to abuse the power of words and the power of a position, the power of the brain, the mind, the intelligence, where we think we're God and we actually own, create anything and everything. Teach us, God, to understand that you will bring justice on monsters. 2,600 years ago you did. And what you're wanting is you're wanting us to walk in reverence. Not as a bully, but a little bit every day like Jesus. A little bit more. God, I ask that all of us would have a phenomenal, sweet Christmas because we're behaving and thinking and acting and saying like Jesus. God, teach us to watch what comes out of our mouths and not to get caught up in exchanging truth for lies. God, may this Christmas be sweet because we want to follow Jesus. All God's people said?